weeks ago.
Oh
I'm
my
not. I'm
God.
not trying to see
Right.
that. You
I'm
know what I
not
mean?
neither. I
So
mean, I'd be okay with this. Like you said, it's not
it ain't
sticking.
sticking. Yeah, you can conduct business in
You
this.
can. You
All
can
right.
still move around. It's not
Yeah.
so
All
horrible.
right, man. I don't know what that groundhog said, but something ain't happening right now.
Right. I thought he saw a shadow. I thought we were gonna have some better weather, but I don't
Man,
know.
we need to come up with something better than to predict
Yeah.
spring than a
Through
animal. Yeah.
a
Come on,
groundhog.
man.
Where they do that
Where
at?
they do that? Here,
Right, in
obviously.
Minnesota.
Yeah. So, nah, man, y'all, it's always good to be here. This is Anthony Taylor, City of Minneapolis, Minneapolis 360, coming to you every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Always my blessing. So blessed and proud to be riding with my girl, Glam Life, Kim Shotgun. Every time we get on this, it just makes everything a whole lot better, y'all. And just real quick, I'm talking to Glenn and some of y'all who were on before, talking about the weather and everything else. And, me and Kim love to talk about the weather because all we do is rush winter away.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's all we do. We just rush it away, man. We can't wait for it to be over.
I swear, we got to start embracing this weather or something. Like, we need to be sledding or something. I don't know.
Right,
Tubing.
yeah,
I don't know.
Hey, the most activities I do in the wintertime, man, is barbecue on my deck.
Oh,
that's
my
just about
God.
it. So,
that is not a winter
I know it
activity.
ain't. I know it ain't. So that's on me. I'm gonna embrace it one day. Me and you gonna get it cracking.
Yeah, let's do it. Because I mean, if we have to deal with it, why not embrace it?
Why not embrace it? That's the truth, y'all. Hey, and if y'all thinking like me, man, like hit us up. Let us know some of these little snow stories. I think it's important, y'all. But listen, hey, we gonna talk about some things today, and I'm gonna get right into it, y'all. A lot of times we do a lot of updates. I want to save a lot of that for last if we can. It's only a 30-minute show, so I kind of want to dig into this pretty deep. And again, the topic today, everybody, is we got the Civil Rights Department on. They've been on here quite a few times over the 5+ years that I've been on the studio, and they've come and dropped a lot of knowledge from the leadership of Director Gillespie, coming on the show and just blessing us with a lot of information. I want to talk today about folks who may be experiencing some type of discrimination anywhere in the city, as well as people that may be experiencing some police misconduct as well, and how to be able to get your needs met, being able to talk to somebody, getting things done in your community if it happens. And also, too, want to talk about a civil community commission to help out with some of the things that are happening in the city. And I won't give all the whole deal because this is my little monologue, but I want to bring on my guest to talk about that. And we're going to talk about that today so we can see how folks can help themselves. So I want to bring on my guests here quickly to introduce themselves. I have Kayla, Director of Complaints and Investigation Division of Civil Rights Department, and John Jefferson, Director of Office Police Conduct Review. Welcome to Minneapolis 360, y'all. How y'all feeling?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're doing great. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is just a really, really important topic, and I want to dig into it because a lot of folks take some hard hits, and they're not really supposed to, right, Kim? We talk about discrimination.
Absolutely.
We talk about sometimes our police ain't doing right by us, right? How can we be able to help and navigate that and get those complaints to people?
Right.
And I think that's super important. But, listen, y'all, before we do this, we always kind of want to just frame up some stuff and welcome y'all to KMOJ. So I want to just, Kayla, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. And then after that, John, you're next.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much. So, I'm Kayla McConnell-Jetta. I'm the Director of the Complaint Investigations Division within the Civil Rights Department. And our main job is that we enforce the city's civil rights ordinance by receiving and investigating complaints of discrimination. Myself personally, I have a law degree from Mitchell Hamlin, and I've been working in the Civil Rights Department for about 7 years. And I've been in this current role for about 2 years. And my division, we have a staff of 5 people, 2 intake officers and 3 investigators, and we all work together to make sure we're bringing the civil rights ordinance to life and really helping it work for people.
Wonderful.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm sort of new here. I came to my office back in November of 2022. I'm a former FBI agent. I have 34 years of law enforcement experience with the Indiana State Police and with the FBI. And I've prior to that, I was conducting operations throughout the world and throughout the United States. And what brought me here was that my last 9 years as an FBI agent, I conducted internal investigations involving employee misconduct and insider threat. So I'm trying to bring that great experience that I have with the FBI into the great city of Minneapolis.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful. And welcome to the show, and appreciate y'all carving out some time to be on Minneapolis 360. And Kayla, I'm going to start with you. You know, I set it up, right? Like the complaint division. How does that work? What's going on?
Yeah, so really what the bread and butter of our work is we're attempting to prevent and prohibit discrimination throughout the city of Minneapolis. But how we do that is we receive and investigate complaints from the public, so from the folks that are potentially listening today. So what we need to do our work is we need people to let us know what they're experiencing. So we really encourage anybody in the city of Minneapolis who believes that they've experienced discrimination to reach out and file a complaint. And there's a few different ways to do that. We try to make it as accessible as possible depending on people's preferences of how they'd like to communicate with us. So they can call 311 if they'd rather, if they'd like to provide their complaint over the phone. We also have an online discrimination complaint form. If you go to the city's website and just search the word discrimination, you'll be able to find that. We have forms available in English, Spanish, Somali, Hmong, Lao, and Oromo. And then you're also very welcome to come to our office. So we're in room 239 in City Hall, and happy to take walk-ins and talk to folks and try to understand what they're experiencing and see if we can provide some service and some tools to address that.
Talking with Kayla, Director of Complaints and Investigation Division of the Civil Rights Department. Now, Kayla, who can file a complaint, right? So talk about just some of the basics of who can file a complaint if they're experiencing any type of discrimination.
Right, absolutely. So anyone who feels they've experienced discrimination can and is very much encouraged to file a complaint. So we have jurisdiction to investigate discrimination that's happening within the city limits of Minneapolis itself and within the last year. To give you just kind of an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about discrimination under the Civil Rights Ordinance, it's generally a negative action that's taken against you because of your protected class. So first, to talk about what that kind of negative action looks like. It's things like losing a job, being denied housing, or maybe being refused service at some sort of business. And then when we talk about protected class and that the discrimination has to be based on protected class, how I like to explain that is it's something about yourself that you either cannot or should not be asked to change. So these are things like race, sex or gender, disability, national origin, religion, and more. They're all spelled out in the Civil Rights Ordinance. And then we have jurisdiction over this type of discrimination in certain areas. So the most common things we see are discrimination in employment and housing. We also see it in public accommodation, so that's things like interacting with like a business, trying to get a service, going to a restaurant, trying to use a gym, something like that. And then also public services, so we can investigate potential discrimination that might have happened like with your interaction with a city employee, whether that be a police officer, a housing inspector, or someone else that works for the city of Minneapolis. One of the things that we really encourage people to do is, even if you're not quite sure if what you've experienced falls under what we can investigate, we really encourage you to still file a complaint because, one, hopefully we can investigate it and can help you out, but also we can help guide you to resources and maybe another place where you could file a complaint. We really want to be a resource to members of the community that are having these experiences.
Absolutely, and I'm glad we're talking about this topic because I think there's a lot of people who are experiencing discrimination in this city, and all of these defined protected ordinances I think are important, right? You talk about employment, you talk about housing, and there's just a lot of unscrupulous people who live and work in this community. And one of the things that I think is important, Kayla, is to talk about like what happens, after this has occurred, right? And I think that's the biggest thing because a lot of people don't know who they can call, right? So step by step, what is the process after, it finds discrimination? What's the course of action that happens that it's going to be taken after that?
Yeah, so our whole process, investigative process, allows for both the person who experienced discrimination to tell us about what happened to them, but then we also get a response from whoever is alleged to have engaged in the discrimination, so the employer, the property owner, whoever it might be, depending on the circumstances of a case. But if we do our whole investigation and we determine that, yes, it does look like discrimination happened here, we conduct what's called conciliation, and what that is, we bring in the person who made the complaint of discrimination, as well as whoever discriminated against them, like an employer or a landlord. And then we're present there, too, as the Civil Rights Department, and we try to come together and reach some sort of settlement agreement that will conclude the case. So the things that we're normally seeing in settlement agreements, it really is dependent on any particular case and the folks that are involved. But usually there's some sort of monetary element. So whoever discriminated, often pays some sort of money to the person who experienced discrimination. This can compensate them for things like lost wages, moving costs, medical expenses, other things that were related to the discrimination they experienced. And we're pretty excited because in 2022, we really had kind of a banner year for this. So we were able to facilitate more than $500,000 in monetary settlements for victims of discrimination, which is the most that we've actually ever been able to get on behalf of folks who have had these experiences since we started tracking back in 1993. So we're pretty excited about that. I'll also highlight that these sort of settlement agreements can be really helpful in things that are outside the money, too. So things like someone getting their job back, being able to remain in housing, and big picture items that hopefully are trying to prevent discrimination happening in the future. So that's things like policy changes and anti-discrimination training. And I can also, just to give people kind of an idea of the cases that we're seeing and where we're seeing discrimination occurring, in those cases, so I can highlight just a few kind of sets of facts that we've seen over the last year. So one was a transgender individual who received a verbal job offer, but that job offer was revoked shortly after they informed the employer who was going to hire them that they were transgender, and they objected to the bathroom use policy by this employer as potentially discriminatory. So that's a situation where we found discrimination occurred, and we did enter into this conciliation process. We had another case where it was a woman who was in her 60s. She worked at an employee leasing company, and her manager subjected her to repeated comments regarding her sex and age, and then excluded her from work assignments in favor of less experienced male employees. And she had reported this to her supervisors, to other folks within the company, and yet they didn't take any action to help her or to remedy kind of that situation that was occurring. We have another case where there was a Black woman who had a disability and was working at a nonprofit, and she was actually terminated, lost her job, on the day she was set to return from a medical leave. She had raised concerns right before she had to go on that medical leave about racism in company culture. And so that's another situation where we found that discrimination had in fact occurred in her being terminated from her job. And then the last one I'll highlight is we had a woman in her 50s. She was an executive in food manufacturing, and she was excluded from valuable employee perks available to younger, less senior male employees. And then her position was eliminated. She was laid off, but then the company turned around and hired a younger, less experienced male into a very similar role. So that's just kind of a smattering of the types of cases that we see where we do investigations and we do find that discrimination occurred, and then help facilitate a positive outcome for these folks.
Yeah, like Minneapolis, I hope y'all hearing, because a lot of us have been in that situation before or know some people who've been in that situation. So this is really, really important information. And I appreciate the examples, Kayla, a lot, because I think a lot of times, I don't know if folks be able to recognize the exact discrimination. They just know in their gut that that's not right. Right. You just know in your stomach that that's not right.
And a lot of times they just don't speak up because they don't know that it's even possible for them to speak up.
Exactly, 100%. And to that question, Kim, like just real quickly, Kayla, how can folks protect from retaliation, right? So I mean that's something that I think is important to talk about, right? Being scared to be retaliated against their employer or housing. Like, how can folks be protected in this process?
So I really appreciate that question because we hear that from folks a lot too. So we do have a specific provision in the Civil Rights Ordinance that does protect folks from retaliation. So if you file a complaint with us, and then anything negative happens to you kind of in response to that, so whatever that might be, like maybe your job is terminated or something, after you file a complaint, that is something that's a part of what we can enforce. So that's something that we would investigate and that you could, for lack of a better terms, win a case on, saying that you had been discriminated against and retaliated against, and then we can help navigate that, positive solution to that. That's also something that whoever is engaged or alleged to have engaged in discrimination is made aware of. So when they're made aware that a charge has been filed, they understand that that's something that they can't retaliate against someone for. And if they do, they are in violation of the Minneapolis Civil Rights Ordinance.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear because there's a lot of things out there that happen and intimidation and those type of things. So I wanted folks to understand that there's some protections in that, and I appreciate you talking about that. And I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm going to bring John on to talk about the Office of Police Conduct Review. But mediation is possible. Is that correct, Kayla?
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the things I'm most excited about in our work. So just to give folks kind of an idea of what mediation is, it's a tool that we use in our cases all the time. And mediation is an opportunity for the parties, so whoever filed the complaints of discrimination and then whoever is alleged to be discriminating against them, can be brought together with a mediator who functions kind of as a neutral facilitator of communication to try to come to an agreement on terms that both sides can agree to. We have a new in-house mediators that provide this, and we also have a fairly new program for early mediation, where in every case where we file a charge of discrimination, we offer mediation right away. And one of the really positive things about that is it provides hopefully very efficient outcomes, right? Because this is very early on in our process where we're coming together to potentially come up with a solution that hopefully helps folks out moving forward. But it also can be really important for preserving or forming open and understanding relationships. We find this to be extremely helpful in situations where someone's still engaged with whoever they think is discriminating against them. So say, you're concerned about how your employer is treating you, but you still work there and you want to keep working there. And so you want to come to some sort of agreement where you can move forward in a more positive way. We really find that mediating these cases early on in the process really can be helpful with that. And just to highlight too, what do you get out of mediation? Kind of what's the final product if you have a successful mediation? It's very similar to the things I talked about with conciliation. So it can really be anything that you're looking for that the other side is willing to agree to. So maybe it's, making sure you can keep that job. Maybe it's making sure that there's some anti-discrimination training that's happening at your work to prevent these things happening in the future. Maybe it's being able to stay in your housing. Really depends on the particular case and the facts at hand and what you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. But it really can help provide positive solutions for folks. So it's something that I really am proud of, the fact that we can offer that to people, and excited about that as kind of a newer tool that we can use.
Yeah, Kayla, I appreciate that. Lots of good information, and thank you. And John, I want to bring you in here, man, because I think it's important that we talk about this. I'm going to give you the rest of our 9 minutes to kind of get this off, John, because it's important. So talk about what's the Office of Police Conduct Review.
Okay, thank you. The Office of Police Conduct Review, we're a neutral agency that investigates allegations of police misconduct made into the city of Minneapolis. With those allegations, when we conduct these investigations, we were also looking to conduct research and audit projects that may lead to emerging trends and issues within the police department that maybe the police department is not aware of. And we try to provide that feedback to MPD in regards to policy writing and review. And also we take that information and we can create various data to the community so they can see the different trends and the different research and study projects as well.
Talking with John, Director of Office of Police Conduct Review, talking about the Police Conduct Review. John, so how are these allegations of police misconduct handled? I think people really want to understand that.
Yeah, that's the thing. People are like, well, what happens when I file a complaint? And let me just hit on how you file a complaint, because a lot of people may not know, how do I file a complaint? So there's several different ways. You can go online and file a complaint, the police officer complaint form, or you can do a download of the police officer complaint form. Or you can come here in person at room 239 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to file a complaint. And if you need additional assistance, you can call 311 or 612-673-3000. So, people can file a complaint in those different ways. So most people are like, well, what happens, after I file a complaint? So first thing, it has to fall on the OPCR jurisdiction. It has to be within 270 days. So if you file a complaint, it's got to be within the time frame of 270 days that it occurred. It has to be against allegations against a MPD officer and allegations of some type of misconduct. So what we do is, once that complaint comes into our intake investigation, we gather all the possible information that we possibly can. It could be body camera recordings. It could be police report, dispatch logs, public videos, and so on. And so we put that together, and we present that to the joint supervisors. And the joint supervisors will look at the information and the allegations against maybe a police officer, and they determine what direction it's going to take. Now, some things are dismissed, and the reason why they're dismissed is because there's no jurisdiction. For example, it may be with another city. It happened in another city or something of that nature, not really involving MPD. It may be sent to that agency, though. That information may be sent to that agency for referral, so maybe they can do a follow-up on. You have to be able to state a claim. And sometimes we just find no bias for it. There is not fitting into any allegation. And also it may be beyond a reckoning period of 270 days. So it has to fall within those 270 days that the situation happened. Once we look at the information, it can go to several different levels. It can go to mediation. It can go to coaching. Now, people are like, well, what's coaching? Well, coaching is involving like A-level complaints. So, for instance, if a police officer, this is just an example, a police officer driving down the road fast for whatever reason, and maybe they didn't have their seatbelts on. So it's not a high violation, but that is a violation by not wearing their seatbelts. So what we do is we send that information to their precinct for them to resolve it. So their supervisor will resolve the situation with the officer, sit down with the officer, explain to him, hey, look, you're violating this policy. Let's make a correction and put that in his file.
Okay.
So now, we're gonna. Did you have a question?
Yeah, and I wanted to just ask this question because we kind of running up against the clock, and I would love to kind of have you back on this show. But one of the things, and I think folks hear you, is there any type of transparency in this process, right? So if the chief is the only person who can impose these disciplines, and it may be something that's dismissed, is there transparency in the process with the other person who's alleging this, and all of a sudden it's dismissed? Or just, I want to just be clear with folks, because a lot of times I think that there's questions about like the whole process, because I would hate to have a discrimination complaint on misconduct and then it's just dismissed and I have no idea why.
Right. So I think here's where the transparency comes in, and we try to do a very good job, and we're very neutral when we're conducting investigations. But here's where the transparency comes in, and I think people are hearing about the Community Commission on Police Oversight that went into effect, or was passed in December 13, and we're in the process of standing that up. And you can go online to file the application for right now. And so with that, here's where the transparency comes in, because with the Community Commission Police Oversight, we'll have 3 civilians sitting on this oversight committee and 2 sworn officers. And what they do is they have an opportunity to review these cases that before they go to the chief. And they can when they review the cases, decide if it's a merit or no merit. So this gives the community a lot of transparency. I'm really excited about the program. I'm excited about standing it up, but it gives the community the transparency and insight directly into cases, looking at cases of police misconduct.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying, bro. I think a lot of people do. I just want to make sure that I ask some questions that people might be thinking that's riding in their car, listening on their phones about this, because I can imagine that there's folks who have experienced this, and I just want to be clear, and especially the stuff that Kayla talked about, like protections and transparency. I mean, those are questions that I hear in community quite a bit, right? So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And John, with the 2 minutes that we got left, and again, I would love to have you back on this show. You talked about this new police conduct commission. You're recruiting for this, right? With the
we are.
Last minute, like, who are you looking for this committee?
Okay, so we're looking for 15 members. 13 will be commissioned or appointed by the city council, and 2 will be appointed by the mayor. So we're looking for individuals who are 18 years and older, people who have to be able to pass the background check. We're looking for people from all different walks of life, whether you're black, LGBTQ, have been incarcerated before. We're looking for all members, anyone who wants to be part of this great ordinance that's been passed and to participate. We're looking for, you cannot be a current Minneapolis employee, that's for sure, or a police officer by statute. So we're looking for people who can demonstrate a commitment to equitable and non-discriminatory policing.
Absolutely. So people who are formerly incarcerated, people with different disabilities, LGBTQ individuals, black and indigenous folks are welcome to be a part of this committee. And again, Minneapolis, if you want to apply for this committee, go to www.minneapolis.gov/government/boards and commissions. Current openings. You can always, y'all, call 311. We've been plugging 311 forever and a decade. They going to get you to the right place all the time. When in doubt.
Just call 311.
311. Hey, it's good to have both of y'all here. I appreciate y'all taking some time out of your busy day, Kayla. I know what your day looked like because it kind of looked like the same as mine. So, again, I appreciate both of y'all coming on today and letting the community know about this.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, man, we experience this stuff, Kim, in our community. We know people who have, and they just don't know how to activate or what to do. And I think it's important to know that because some of these employers and these housing landlords and everything else is shady.
They are something else.
Yeah.
And that's just it, is that if you don't know, then they keep getting away with it because you just don't say anything. You just sit back and take it. There's a lot of people that's sitting back taking it.
Absolutely, man. We can't do that, y'all. So, hey, man, you look good today. I like the black and all of that. You look sleek.
Hey, well, a little bit later I'm going to go. I'm not sure if you're going to check out that Access Commitment Live.
Uh-oh.
Down there. You haven't heard of
I
that?
haven't heard of that.
U.S. Bank down in the Ray McKenzie group down at Grays. So
okay.
Go check that out.
All right.
You should come if you're not busy.
Man, my days are crazy.
Oh, man.
I wish. And my 5-year-old is like a most active dude in
you
the
got him
planet.
today?
I don't have him today, man, but I like this.
He keeps you busy.
I need to recuperate. You know what I'm saying? So,
I understand it.
I'm good. Good to see you, sis.
Thank you. You as well. It's always a pleasure, you guys. Coming up next, it's cold outside, so you got to cuff it. Beyonce. It's the People Station, baby.